Hi, welcome to the Foundry Jewelry School first long-form YouTube tutorial. My name is Becky. I opened up the Foundry Jewelry School to teach exclusively wax carving, lost wax casting, and lapidary arts. For those of you that don't know, lapidary is the cutting and polishing of raw stones. It's how you get your gemstones, but we more traditionally use it for flat inlay pieces in our jewelry. But yeah, this is my first long form YouTube content tutorial, and we'll see how it goes. There will be some trial and error, I'm sure, but please leave in the comments anything that you think would be, if you need better shots or longer times on different parts, or you want me to divide it differently. I would love for this to be as helpful as possible for you guys, because that's why I'm doing it. So our first tutorial is going to be dimensioning and tapering a bombe ring. So a bombe ring, and by the way, I've actually never heard it pronounced. I'm assuming that's the pronunciation. It's spelled like bomb with an E at the end, but it's derived from French. And but basically, regardless of how you pronounce it, is you basically have a domed top to the ring where it's thicker. It originated in the early 1900s, around the Art Deco time, but it's really like grown into throughout the years into different things, and you can really make beautiful works of art on rings with this. It's one of my favorite styles, and it actually serves as the base of a lot of my curved lapidary rings up here. So I ultimately, you're going to get the base. You're going to be able to take away skills on how to dimension a ring, cut it from a ring blank, have it be the size you want, and it gives you the perfect base that you can then turn into a lapidary project. You could turn it into a gemstone project. You could just have it be, you can carve it into the top with designs, but ultimately you'll take these skills and apply it to really any dimensioning of rings, whether it's a signet, bombe, or other. So let's get started. I think I'll first go over the tools that we're going to need, and if I'm ever most of my tools are mostly budget friendly, but if for some reason I'm using a tool that I know there's a cheaper alternative that would definitely work, I will highlight that, because I know money's tight, so sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not, and sometimes just getting in, even if it's not with the best tools, is the best route. Get your foot in the door. And yeah, again, please let me know in the comments if you need anything different. I will add links in the description for where to get things. And again, we're the Foundry Jewelry School. Come for a couple days, come for a full week to learn these things in person. It's the best way to learn. And it's the most fun also, because you don't have to go through all the rigmarole of looking through all the YouTube content and trying to find the right thing. You can have someone teaching you, answering questions, guiding you into what you want to be doing, and giving you instruction in that right away. And pretty much everyone that leaves, they love the pieces that they've made. So you're gaining skills, but you're also creating a piece of jewelry that you actually want to wear and show off in your own life. So if you can get out here, come for the jewelry, stay for the beaches, and let's get started. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's do a brief overview of the tools needed in today's tutorial. We have our jeweler's saw, which uses a spiral blade. There we go. Spiral blade works on the wax, and it cuts in both directions. I use my ring sizing mandrel, which has a blade on one side, which will then hollow out the inside of the wax ring blank. And we use our metal ring blanks to know what size we actually are. And then a tape, any kind of tape that we'll put on our mandrel to know how far we're bringing our wax ring down when sizing out the inside. This is not necessary, but I do recommend it if you're going to be doing much wax working. Just any sort of square. You can usually find this in the carpentry section of a hardware store or a woodworking store to make sure that our rings are 90 degrees squared out when doing symmetrical rings. I then have dividers. There we go. These are just basic cheap dividers, but they have like very sharp points at the end. So I use these all the time to mark out dimensions. And once I have my dimensions marked, it's hard to show this, but this is talc powder, but you can also use cornstarch that we'll put into our marked lines to make them more visible. We then have our double-sided file, which has both one side is curved, one side is flat, and then there's a more coarse side and a more fine side. And then we have our wire brush, so when the wax starts to clog our file, we can wipe it out. I then have my sanding block, which I get from the drywall section of a hardware store. This is fine, and it's about 180 grit. Anything around that will be good, but these are great. I use them all the time to take out a lot of the file marks from my bigger file and give me a pretty good surface toward the end of a design. Lastly, it's not in many of my shots, but I always have a bench pin at the end of my table. Yeah, so a lot of my shots won't be showing this because I'm trying to do, top down for you guys to see what I'm doing a little bit better, but I highly recommend you have a bench pin so that you could have more range of motion and protect your desk, and it'll just make your life way easier, and these are pretty cheap. So, all right, let's get started. All right, so we are starting with our bombe style wax ring blank. It's the bombe one because this upper part is a thicker dimension than this bottom part. Let's get started. First thing that we do is we need to cut off the amount that we want for our ring. So this is what we're going to do for every single ring, but you're basically deciding what is the width this way that we want to have for our ring at the widest portion. So if you're wanting to actually do something that has an 8mm big stone on top, you would actually do quite a big one. If you're just trying to do something very dainty, you could go very, very minimal. You will always want to be marking out a slightly larger portion because once you saw it and you file it down so it's squared, you will lose a little bit. So just for the purposes, I think I'm going to do something like this. If it really mattered, I would maybe measure, but it doesn't for this. I'm also making sure that I'm using an end that is squared. So this isn't necessary. You can eye it, but if you're trying to, really do something that is perfectly symmetrical or perfectly square, you'll actually want to get a square. You can get this at the hardware store, but basically you could do it this way or this way, but you're looking for any gaps on this side where light comes through because that would indicate that your ring blank is not squared. Mine is pretty close, so we are going to go with that. Okay, so first step. You have your dividers open, and you're going to mark it. So you're going to have one of the blades on the inside as the other one cuts in just slightly. And the way I do it is I actually just rotate the ring blank. And you keep going. And then eventually you get to the other side. So we have it all around. And while that is nice to have, it's hard to see. So we actually then use talcum powder. You could also use cornstarch. And just put a little bit in all the way around so that you can then see you're marking very clearly. I use an old, like, Altoid or knockoff Altoid can. Okay, so I'm now going to start sawing. So I am rotating it at the same time instead of just sawing all the way through, so that I'm getting my saw marks directly on my line on all edges before going through. It helps avoid diagonal cuts when you are sawing. Okay, so now that I have my ring blank, clearly I have a lot of saw marks that still need to come out. So before I do anything else, I am now going to actually saw this. So I'm doing it right here. Typically I would do it on the edge of my desk, but I don't want to reset up my camera. So this is essentially what you're gonna do. Okay, so I have the major saw marks off, but I'm gonna actually, just as a matter of habit, take a sanding block. This is 180 grit. It's kind of perfect for this to get these saw marks off, or file marks off. It's just good to have like a very plain surface that is free from defects, so that when we use our dividers or our scribe for marks, it's more obvious. And this will just be more important, especially as you advance in your wax carving and you have more lines, more intricacies. Just get out the imperfections as you go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm gonna recheck with this to make sure that I'm not seeing any major imperfections. Looks good on that side. Looks good on that side. Next step. Let's see. Here's it. I'm gonna figure out which rings size to do. So I think I'm wanting one for my middle finger. Let's see. Maybe 4.5. That's tight. All right, so my middle finger is a size 5. So what I am going to do is take my ring sizer, see where this gets to, and then I'm just gonna actually take a little piece of tape and put it on the back side. I do it on the part that's more narrow just so I don't go over, but I'm gonna put it just like a little piece right there. I don't know why I tore off so much. So I know that when I start to take out some of the inside of my ring, I should stop when my ring just gets right past this tape. I'm gonna actually just check it even, when it gets close to it, to make sure that I don't go over, because as you're doing it, you might get some saw mark or some lines from the sizer, and when you take those away, you lose some wax as well. So I don't want it to end up being too big. So I do. Oh, okay. So it's pretty close to my actual size already, but that's why, as you can see, it goes a little bit over the tape. But I'm holding it like this to protect my finger from the blade or my hand. And I'm just lightly going around. I did about 3 passes, and then I'm flipping it over so that I do the other side the same amount. All right, so I'm gonna check. And that feels good to me. I can definitely still get it over my knuckle if I wanted to, but I'm gonna leave it there because as we polish the inside and take out some wax, it will naturally just get bigger. For most of you, without, you know, tiny little fingers like me, you might go all the way down here taking out wax. So the tape becomes much more helpful for you. Okay, so now that I'm at this place, as you can see, it's still way too thick. Is decide the actual thickness that you want. And I like to be around 2 millimeters. And what you're gonna do is take your dividers, measure out the thickness of the ring that you want. So I'm trying to figure out the width this way, or thickness that way. And again, always give yourself a little bit extra, but that looks like a good thickness to me. So I am now then marking in the same way that we used the dividers before, the inside. I could already tell that this is a little bit thick, but I could always take it down later. And I am rotating my ring and keeping my dividers the same and going all the way around. And then I'm doing the same thing on the other side so that when we take off the excess wax from the outside, we know we can make it the same on each side. All right. Just so that you guys can see what happened. Okay, so because this is a bombe style ring, we're not taking it out and just taking out all this. We now want to get the bombe shape. So what I'm doing is essentially figuring out how much to take off from the outside to keep it the same exact shape as it is from the manufacturer, just smaller. So hopefully you guys can see that there's this outer line that we are going to take off all this excess material to that line. And I have it marked out on both sides so that I am going to be getting a symmetrical 90-degree edge on the outside. Okay, so to better explain this, in case that wasn't super clear, is you have your ring, and this is the correct size in the middle, but right now you just have too much material on the outside, but you're wanting to keep it the same proportion. So what I do is I mark out basically 2 millimeters from this bottom, because that's the thickness I want it down here. You can decide for you, but I feel like 2 millimeters for this is a nice measurement. So I'll mark out with my dividers this 2 millimeter dimension, and then I'll separately open up my dividers from the outside to this line. And whatever this is, let's just call it 3 millimeters, I'm then going to drag that along the outside. There we go. So this measurement to that 2 millimeter mark from the inside is what we're going to take away. So I'm then going to use my file to take away all of this outside part, leaving me the same hole, this 2 millimeter on the bottom mark, and a thinner overall amount of material or around the whole ring, but keeping that same off-center ring bombe proportions. I'm using all hand tools today, just you can do a mix. I don't have a ton of material to take off. If I had a ton of material, I would either saw it off or I would use a rotary tool for part of it. But I don't have much, so I'm using my double-edged file. I'm going to use the flat part of the more aggressive side and gradually just take it down. And you can see, again, like I'm taking it down just to the line. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Also going to occasionally, when my file gets clogged, get some of it out. All right, so that's looking pretty good to me. It's definitely not perfect, but this is where my sanding block comes in. Okay, so as you can see, we now have the dimensioned ring where it's thicker at the top, but it's still proportional. So I have the right width and thickness at the bottom, right thickness at the top, but it's still just pretty one-dimensional. It's the same width all the way around, doesn't have a nice taper. It also doesn't have any fun curvature to it. So it just is, it's falling pretty flat. So now we're gonna mark out how to get a proper taper so that it's uniform on each side. Hold on, my dog is trying to get on me. 1 second. Eggie, go to your bed. Go to your bed. So on the bottom part, the skinny part, where we're gonna also want it to be more narrow, we're gonna wanna mark out, again, with our dividers, a distance from each side so that it's the same. So I initially eye it to see the actual thickness I want for the bottom part. I want my ring to be approximately, what is that? Probably about maybe 3.5 to 4 millimeters wide. And then I'm eyeing, okay, it looks like I have to take about 1.5 meters off of each side. So I'm closing my dividers down to that amount and then marking that amount on each side. Okay, yeah, so it'll serve as like at least a guide. And we want to taper that and keep it the actual thickness toward the top. So I'm essentially going to, again, put the powder in these lines so I can see them. They're just at the bottom, and I have an extra one because I ended up changing it. But I'm gonna take my file again and really go at an angle. So essentially I'm kind of going like this away, and I'm just doing thin strokes and doing it back and forth. So I'm getting it all each side. Another alternative, and I really should just go to the store and get one. I'm just kind of a minimalist and don't want more and more tools. That becomes clutter, is to get a rasp file that is at least the size of your, like, this is about 1 inch wide for me, the size of your actual ring blank. Because then you could literally just kind of go back and forth on it. If I were to do that on this, I would get an uneven because it's not wide enough. But since I don't have that, I am just going to, again, go like this. And I'm going kind of, you're going to want to go in the direction of the top to the bottom, even on the sides. It'll help keep it the right taper and having it stay the full width at the top. Alright, now do it on this side. I also like, I'm filming it like this when really like if you guys weren't, if I wasn't doing this for you, I'd have it on my bench pin out of ease. It's kind of hard for me to hold it like this, but I thought this might be an easier way for you guys to see what I'm doing. So if you have a bench pin, which you should, this is kind of how what you would be doing, but it would be on your bench pin. Actually, I gotta move a little bit, sorry guys. Okay, so just so I know and you know, in case you're modeling yours after mine, the thickness at the bottom, it looks a little bit thick to me, but I think it's okay. But it is about 1.75 millimeters, so that's actually pretty good. And then at the top, it is approximately 4.5 millimeters. Obviously like a little bit less, but it's hard. Oh no, but then that's actually not the very center. So the very center top is, yeah, it's around 4.5, maybe a little bit more. And then the width this way at the very bottom is around 2 3/4, 2.5 to 2 3/4 wide. And then at the top, it is around 5.5. So that looks really good to me. Okay, so now like the final steps of just the basic curvature is using, again, I use my flat file for almost everything, and I'm just gonna start rounding over the edges so that it ends up being an actual dome. So you're just taking away the harsh spots, and I just do this by eye. We could have marked out the center line before we tapered it, and you would know just to do this curvature over to the center line, but now that we've tapered it, we actually can't do that. So I'm just eyeing it out so that I'm curving it over essentially to that middle area. I love when it gets to this phase and it's just like, oh, it's just it's like the refinement phase. Okay, so as you can see, we are getting a very, very nice dome shape. And now just final few steps are just taking out the scratches, taking out this kind of like, because it's soft, it kind of conforms to the overall shape and will kind of homogenize everything, kind of like flows everything together. All right, so I just finished kind of like what I think getting it to like a good level. I actually went in with another sanding block 320 just to take out a few more scratches. And then, let's see. I just have like a little thing like this. It's getting pretty dirty, but I just take a couple, like one Q-tip. And this is not a necessary step, but this is Wax Spray by Rio Grande. I don't know why my focus isn't working. Okay. And I basically just put a little bit on it. And this will like take away like the white stuff. It'll also show me if there's any scratches like big scratches that I missed. Okay, so now that it's at a level that I really like and I think will look good in metal, I'm gonna go ahead and sprue this, pour some investment plaster over it, melt out the wax, and pour the metal in. I also am gonna go ahead and polish it, and this is what I got. If you would like a tutorial on polishing or adding stonework or carving to this, leave it in the comments.